Today, I want to welcome back to Leaders and Legacies, Richard Walsh. Richard is a former Marine, a internationally renowned steel sculptor, a business strategy coach, um, builder of, we wouldn't call it an operating system because it's more than that, but of systems that really transform factories. I've known Richard for a while. We had him on the podcast over a year ago, and that was a great discussion. But he and I connected recently, and I've learned what he's been doing, and I think it's fascinating. And let me frame it this way. A lot of businesses have many things in place. Maybe they've installed like a business operating system. But then you look and you're like, well, wait a minute, something's missing. And I think that's what Richard's found. And we're going to talk about that. Richard, welcome back.
Greg, thanks for having me. Great to be back. Yeah, it's been a little while. Time
It has
flies.
been. Well, we got to start with a shout out to the core. You know,
Hoorah.
hoorah, Semper Fi, man. It's,
Hey, I have one son in,
yeah.
just for record. Going on almost his third year. Another son going in September. Look out.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So, who told them to do that? It wasn't me. I tried everything else, but they insisted on the Marine Corps because they're wise.
There's somebody in my networking group that announced, hey, my son just got accepted to the Naval Academy. And I replied, I said, make sure he chooses Marine option. You don't want him living with a life of regret. And
Love it.
it's funny. I could never imagine being in another branch. I just
Yeah.
can't imagine it. And I'm not trying to diss those folks, but why? I just couldn't
Well,
do it.
Craig, it kind of ties in what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Command infrastructure.
Yeah.
So people go command, they're thinking military. I go, well, no, it's not military. I guess you could say military-esque. The principles, the principles have been brought from that, but put into the civilian terms and operational method, right? The whole methodology I created. So it's kind of interesting. So as you know, being a Marine, it never leaves you.
Yeah.
Okay. It changes you forever, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And it just does. But there's so many incredible qualities that you probably didn't like when you were in. Okay. But you look back and go, I'm so glad I
Yeah.
have that discipline. I have those traits, those abilities, those capabilities now. So yeah, I've kind of put them into the mix and created this methodology. So, man, I'm just so grateful to the Corps.
I continue to thank the Marine Corps for so many things in my life. I mean, and um, when I was having to learn how to walk again, you know, I don't know how people who didn't have our training went through that because it was
Mm.
hard.
Right.
But it's a mentality, one of the things I recognized early in boot camp, I wrote home to my dad and I said, this is a mental game. If I can make it mentally, I can make it physically. And my dad later said that that was when he knew it would be okay.
Yeah,
I'd,
it's great.
I'd make it through. But it's so let's talk about the mentality. Actually, I want to pause there because you do something that's like really, really cool. You're one of the most diverse people I know. Let's just take a minute and talk about your sculptures.
Yeah.
I mentioned that, but I don't think it does justice. So what do you do?
So what I did, because I stopped about 17 years ago, I have some world-class exhibits, very organic things. I do like giant steel trees, kinetic stuff that actually move, look real, but yet they're abstract. A lot of things along that way. I've done giant steel walk under waterfalls, all kinds of different pieces. I have a permanent exhibit at the Garfield Park Conservatory in Chicago. It's the most cutting edge exhibit in the world on photosynthesis. So
Huh.
I did the whole thing inside. So the Garfield Park Conservatory is the largest conservatory under glass in this country, fifth largest in the world. Okay. So the room next to it is Jens Jensen's fern room. So it's like I'm with greatness, right? So they wanted to build this thing to last another 100 years. So I did all core 10 steel, which rusts and seals itself, so it'll never deteriorate. And everything else, I put a couple hundred tons of boulders, water features in there. I made light fixtures, sign holders. I mean, the whole thing. It's spectacular. And you go and it's all interactive. So the water, I
Wow.
got 10-foot waterfalls coming down. You can walk them and touch them, and
Yeah.
it just disappears into the gravel and stuff, things like that. Mangrove ponds. I mean, it's just bananas. You got the whole thing, right? So you got, sunlight, you got sugar, you've got water and air, right? So you got all that stuff. So it's really, really a fascinating interactive experience. And it was, PBS documentary, they did all kinds of stuff on it. So that was pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
You're like a Renaissance man. You really are. You do well in so many areas and diverse areas. So help me understand the command infrastructure. Let me give you my bias.
mhm.
There are different operating systems out there. You've heard people have, these business operating systems. And I've run into companies that are using one particular operating system. I'm not going to say the name, but every time I see it, I'm like, this is the most horribly run company I've ever seen, or it's at least in contention for being one of the worst run companies. And I'm left wondering what's missing, because when I look at the structure of it, I'm like, the structure looks good. Everything about the structure makes sense to me. But then I look at it in action, and it's like, this is not impressive.
Right.
What's
So
missing?
what's missing is, I, for lack of a better term, really, it's the human element, right? People don't know, they don't understand, and there's all these soft skills and all this stuff with people on the floor. But take a manufacturing floor. Okay, you've got a system, and I'm gonna describe what systems they're dumb because they're a system. They're only reporting results.
Hmm.
Okay, so okay, lights green, cool. Is everything good? No, we have a thing I've called command drift. Drift begins like any other drift, right, in little tiny increments. So it's a little workaround here. It's a deviation of a standard. Like maybe they've got a standard written down somewhere, and say you got 2 or 3 shifts. Well, every shift supervisor interprets it differently, right? So you actually have 3 different operating systems going on
Huh.
because he's banging it 3 times with a hammer to get it back back working right. Another guy's ignoring it completely, and then all of a sudden you've got scrap. All of a sudden that light goes red from green, and it's a major catastrophe. It's not a little fix, right? Because they didn't detect the drift early. They didn't hold or enforce a standard that wouldn't allow that drift to happen, right? So it's command drift prevention.
Well, when you're talking about that, reminds me of something I heard about. So, number of years ago, Ford and Mazda they've gone through a variety of relationships where they're the same company, where they're
Mm-hmm.
sister companies. But the Ford, I think it was the Ford Ranger pickup, and we're talking years ago when a pickup was a pickup. It wasn't like a
Yeah,
luxury vehicle.
right.
It wasn't like a Lexus that you can haul firewood in. Um, the Ford Ranger, and I think it was the Mazda. Oh, I forgot the model, but identical design. And the transmissions in the Mazdas lasted way longer than
Yeah,
the transmissions in the Ford. You look at the blueprints, the design was identical, but it was the drift. It was the Japanese
yep,
mindset of we're continually monitoring drift, and
right,
it's, yeah, we of course are going to be within standard, but we're always going to be tightening that drift.
right, right. So it's the power of enforcement. So I tell people,
Yeah.
okay, and I have a simple saying that's kind of the whole basis of the book. If a standard is not enforced, it does not exist.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the biggest takeaway. Think about it, if a standard is not enforced, it does not exist. So you can put it in the book. You can say what you can plan. I see it on the wall,
Yeah.
but no one's adhering to that. No one's holding the standard. Who's in charge of maintaining the standard? Okay, because if it's personality driven, which means I've got Joe the supervisor, and then I got slacker Steve on second shift. Okay, and if Joe takes 3 weeks off, the whole thing goes in the crapper. Okay,
Yeah.
because he's the one holding all the pieces together. You can't run a business like that. Okay, they have to be interchangeable. And that's what command infrastructure, what I install, that's what it does. It makes it, I'm not negating people. I'm just saying they have a command infrastructure. So again, it's not training, it's infrastructure. So it's installed regardless who's there. There's a language, there's a vocabulary they use. They're able to speak and talk in the same terms and everything else. And they record drift. They actually record it when they catch it and correct it. There's an enforcement of the enforcers. I have that. I have an intelligence system and then does that as well.
Well, it's funny. Now I don't typically work with manufacturers, but you said something kind of triggered something. When I'm working with a new client or we're working on a new project, one of the things I do is say, hey, can we standardize the language? Let's talk about language. What does something mean? And, it's funny, a lot of times they'll look at me and like, what are you talking about? Why are you
Right.
fooling around with this? But 5 minutes in, we find out that we have one word that has two different meanings,
That's right.
depending upon who you ask.
Yep. Yeah. When you get in this book, so the invisible layer, you probably can't see it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, hang on. Yeah, so I forgot to mention that. You've written a book called The Invisible Layer. What's the subtitle?
the hidden structural failure undermining manufacturing.
Okay, visible layer, the hidden structural failure undermining manufacturing.
Yes.
All right, sorry,
Yeah.
finish your thought.
So in this, even in the appendices, I have a full vocabulary. So I lay it all out. This is how we talk. This is how we communicate because I've standardized that language.
Yeah,
Okay. Again, we're upstream of the system, right? We're not downstream. We're not in the middle. We're upstream of the system, whatever your system is. That's where that's at, right? So what that means is I can go company to company, install command infrastructure. Now they're all speaking the same language. So if John, the commander, we actually make them commanders. They're forged into commanders as part of their deal. They get challenge coins, and there's a whole progression, everything else. Everything's tracked and monitored. We'll get into that in a minute. But they can go to another plant that has command installed. They're right in. It's assimilated. I even have a command literacy program, which we take the leads who aren't supervisors and we train them the language.
yeah.
It's rapid assimilation then. When everyone's speaking the same language, just like you mentioned, it was good you caught that. That's what changes the floor.
Well, and I think about, if we go back to boot camp, they started giving us a new language and they standardized the language and we made sure
Yep.
everybody knew exactly what they meant.
You must fall in love with acronyms. And I got a bunch.
Well, my favorite part was when when we get in trouble and we go on the quarter deck,
Right.
the language was just he'd snap the fingers and
Yes.
and we had to figure out what we were starting with. Was it bends and thrusts or
Bends and thrusts begin.
yeah.
Okay. That's all there is. I do it with my kids still. I did it with my son yesterday. Ready? Begin. Okay. So I'm legendary for that, but it's good. No, you're exactly right though. And once that's established, like now with my son who's been a while, I have to be updated on the acronyms, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just speaking in acronyms.
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the conversation, I'm like, dude, you got to slow down, man. Like I've been out for like 40 years. Okay, those things do change. I don't know all the stuff. So it's hilarious though. I mean, they're just still acronyms, just different, right? But yeah, but I think it's really important once that language is common, because you can hold a standard,
Yeah.
right? It's all about what is the standard. I think, Greg, today when you look at standards in general, not just manufacturing, anything in life, everything is, oh, your truth is your truth. All this, right? It's all this nonsense. Like it's whatever you want to believe. It's like, no, that you're in like fairyland. Like
Yeah.
you have to there has to be a standard. Listen, if red means stop and green means go, you decide green means stop, what's going to happen?
Right.
Okay, or red means go. Who's going to die? Right? Like it's that. You just can't arbitrarily like that's the same thing as saying mine is that. If you don't have any standards, again, if it's not enforced, it doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah.
So it just really comes down to that. I think is the biggest overall picture. And if we all look at it, Craig, you kind of go, well, he's kind of got a point, you know?
So, what does enforcement look like?
So think of this. We have what's called the Sharpen Impact Intelligence System. Okay. So think of a dashboard. All right. So our commanders are trained right? How to execute command, how to do this properly, right? How to recognize drift, how to prevent drift. But they also have to upload that into the system every week. Okay. So, and it's like a 5 minute job. This is not like I got to sit down and do a report. Okay.
Right.
It's simple stuff that we track. Okay. So they get certified through us, right? They go through our 90-day, they challenge coin, they're certified commanders, but they can have their command, that certification revoked, right?
Yeah.
So they're always earning it. You know where that comes from, right?
Yeah.
but but if let's say 3 weeks goes by and they don't report any drift, well, they're getting an email. They get an automatic email that says we're calling BS on this because there's always drift.
Right.
There's never not drift. And if you're not detecting it, you're not paying attention. And we're watching. If we don't see a report, you're going to be on. You can be on a warning. There's a whole progression. Then you get what we call it rocked. It's a
Well,
revocation of certification, right? So you're going to get rocked, and like you're going to have to earn your certification back. And
well,
you,
and you're talking about there's always drift.
yeah,
Back when I was in the semiconductor industry, we had a production issue that was severely impacting Bosch, a very big,
right, right,
German company, and the Germans can be very exacting.
yes,
And um, and I found out years later they hid this from me. I was inside the company and they hid this from me. Um, I guess because it was so incredibly embarrassing. Before they would run in production, they would have what they call the golden tray of parts. They would put the golden tray. It was parts that they knew had 100% yield and they knew how they performed. And they would use that to kind of calibrate the machine. And then they started shipping parts that had 100% yields. And nobody slowed down to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And what happened was the test program took the values for the golden tray and started applying those to all the others. And it goes back to what you were saying that that should have alerted somebody. Somebody should have said, "Wait a minute, we never have 100% yield on anything, and let's figure out what's going on."
yep, yep. That's exactly it. And it's that training, if you will, or that attention. Like that's their job, right? A commander has a specific job. We literally, Craig, we teach them how to give a command in 14 words or less.
Oh, that's so powerful.
So you got to think about it when we call it training, but when they go through our 90-day, it's a 90-day kind of sprint install. Um, it's heavy role play. It's role play. It's like nothing's going to stick. Then they have homework all week. So they do one session a week for 2 hours virtually. We do this virtually, right? Any company. And all week they have homework to do. They have go implement this, report back what happened, when you did it, what was the pushback, what was this, how did it go, and do that for 12 weeks. These guys come out on fire. They know it, they live it, it becomes an identity. Training doesn't change people. You can do a seminar, you can do this, you can do that. Oh, that's great on Friday. And by Thursday, it's back to same old
Yeah,
habits. Because when pressure hits, see, here's the key. Everything's fine when everything's good and easy. Turn the pressure on, increase the load, give new deadline, do that, and then see what happens. See how all of a sudden everyone's got to work around. They got this because they're trying to keep the light green,
yeah,
right, at all costs. But all of a sudden, they're not catching a deviation or a defective part on the first check. It goes through, and now they check. And if it gets out the door, that part, if it goes to a customer, it's 100 times the cost if you caught it on the first check. A
right.
100 times. Okay, so like every time it misses and not corrected, you're adding money. Okay, so it's profit leakage. All this stuff on the floor, the biggest place in the factory is floor profit leakage. It leaks everywhere. And
Yeah.
command tightens all that up and it recovers millions and millions of dollars every year.
I heard a story a little bit adjacent to this, but back in the days of the iPod, there was an engineer on the iPod team that figured out they weren't charging the batteries before they were shipping the iPods. And of course, they were doing manufacturing in China. This guy called the factory in China, shut down the production line, and said, "Don't ship any more of these until you charge the batteries because part of the Apple experience
Yep.
is when your iPod shows up, you don't have to plug it in and wait 2 hours to use it.
Nope.
It shows up, it's ready to use." But the thing that amazed me was that an engineer had the authority to call the production line and shut down the production line.
Yeah. This and that's called escalation, right?
Yeah,
So it's a huge thing in the line. Okay, if you got a
yeah,
line going, authority is key. How much? What do you have? Who has that authority? A lead doesn't have any authority. A commander sort of does. Okay, now they know what they're able to do and fix and work, but then what gets escalated? This is an engineer's job, not not my line supervisor's job, right? So he has to or she has to escalate that up. And that's where it gets messed up because you get a great supervisor and he can just fix it. But you can't let him do that because it doesn't mean he's fixing it right. He's just fixing it so it continues to get the production out. So
yeah,
you're just kicking the can down the road to the big breakdown. So that's a big thing we teach, but that has to be established like any company, whether it's manufacturing or you're an accounting firm, right? You have to assign authority. You
yeah.
know, it's just and all we're doing here, Craig, and you probably know this as soon as I say it. I'm not creating something new. I'm going back. I'm going back to when standards were standards and they
Yeah.
were held. When stuff, we always talk about, hey, they don't make things like they used to. Well, that's because they let go of the standards. Okay. They had standards and it matters. So I'm not, this isn't like new. I'm going back. And I'm going, this is what let's bring that back. Let's bring that element back. And obviously, I've created vocabulary and everything else applied for today, but it's that. It's holding the standard. That's what matters.
Now, there are some people listening that are thinking, I didn't join the military for a purpose. There's a reason I never joined the
Right.
Marines.
Right.
I don't want to go into this company and have it
Yeah.
run by a bunch of jarheads
Right.
that they're doing enforcing these standards. Have you run into any resistance like that?
So I'll give you a quick how we deal with this. Okay.
Yeah,
It's called, ready for my acronym? It's just a CRI. Okay. It's called the CRI. It's the Command Resistance Index.
yeah,
All right. So, like, say I'm going to come and the company says, "Hey, let's install this command infrastructure. This will be amazing. It's going to save us, tens of millions of dollars. It's going to recover that." Okay, good. Well, we go in and we have to. And I'm going to use my military, and we're going to have to soften the battlefield. Okay. You're always going to get pushback. It's going to be from HR. It's going to be from that one cranky, crotchety line guy who's been there for 15 years, thinks he knows everything. Okay. He'll do it in the training. He'll try to push back. Yeah, we go in and we work that for like 30 days. We're working everyone. We get complete buy-in before we even begin to install. That's the first thing. And we let them know this is not the military. That's
yeah,
not what this is. Okay. But command is the appropriate term. Supervisor means you're kind of like managing people. Command has a very different connotation, right? I'm the commander. I maintain the standard. I enforce the standard. Okay. Yeah, I have people around me too, but we have a whole method of communication now and everyone understands what it is. So that command resistance index, we actually have a score sheet. So as we interview, we just come in and interview and talk to people and then they get a score, and then depending on where they score, it's going to be dependent on how we fix it and when we come in and when infrastructure is ready to be installed. That's a key. That was a big hole that was missing because just like what you said, Craig, people are going to go, some HR is going to freak out. You're going to be like you're militaristic and you're going to do this. And what about that? And you can't say command. You can't, and I'm like, just, okay, just calm down. We just come in and I don't do that. Okay. I'm not the guy who comes in and does that. I have a team for that because that's not my wheelhouse.
yeah.
I'm like, you
Well,
just do it and like it. I go, and it's going to be amazing. But yeah, that doesn't work.
well, here's another story. Yeah, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I was visiting my brother and we went over to somebody's house to go shooting. And guy pulls out a um, like M4 and and he's showing it off. I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I picked it up and I popped one of the pins and broke it down shotgun
Yeah.
style. And he
Yeah.
looked at me. He's like, "You know how to break that down?" I'm like, yeah. I was a little surprised he didn't. He's
Right.
like, "Can you show me?" I hadn't touched that class weapon in 20 years at that
Yeah.
point.
Right.
I don't know. It'd been a long time. Been a
Yeah.
long time, maybe 15. And so I just start pulling it apart and I get to the bolt carrier group and I just kind of got stuck and but instinctively I just decided to flick my wrist. So it flung the bolt out and I was able to
Yeah.
remove the cotter pin,
Yeah.
break it down.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing that up is I had stripped my M16 so many times
Right.
that it just became instinct. And that was one of the things I felt like the Marines gave was there was just so much repetition
Yep.
that it became instinct. How do you work repetition into the command structure so it becomes instinct for everybody else?
Yeah. So again, first is the common language.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's how to deliver commands. Okay. So here's what we don't want. If I'm going to tell you, I use a real simple thing, and I tell you, Craig, okay, Craig, fire up line one at 0600. And you go, well, what about, I go, and I'll just look at you and I won't say anything. You'll say, what about so and so and this? And start the lineup at 0600. And you'll look at me and I'm like, I'm not here to negotiate. I'm not here to debate. All this on commands. The big thing everyone wants to, well, why? They want the why. We don't do the why.
Hmm.
Okay. I get it. And like one guy had asked me, he's like, well, what happens if it doesn't start or whatever? I go, then they follow the process for when the line doesn't start. There's actually a process for everything. Okay, when this breaks, there's a process. You go to this stage and this stage. We've trained them in that, right? So they know it's not some mystery deal out here. Like we deal under pressure. We've designed it for pressure so that when it's easy, right? But we also can maintain the standard when pressure hits. So that's really what happens. That we don't want to negotiate. We don't want to negotiate commands. We don't want to debate them. Okay, you're going to execute. I get it. Stuff's going to go wrong. No battle plan ever survives the first shot.
Yeah.
Okay, but the reality is, like, if we can't communicate like that, if I can't tell you to do something, and you just okay and you go do it, that things run well when you do that.
Yeah.
Think of this like from the commander standpoint. Take a sergeant in the Marine Corps. He's in North Carolina. Okay. You ship him off. He's restationed at Pendleton in California. Still a sergeant, still speaks the sergeant language, still going to execute his job without any like major training or anything, right? Because he understands his identity, his role, his rank, everything else. Same principle. Okay. Again, I'm not like, we're not doing that kind of thing, but you really look at it like we have a process, we have a way that command works. And then we install that again. So it becomes commonplace. It's how it's run.
Well, and here's an example going back to the Marines. You went to San Diego, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went to Paris Island.
Sorry for you, buddy. Little sand
Well,
flea.
I was
Little
I
sand
was
flea.
thinking the same for you.
I
It's
just, yeah, we're just getting suntans and, wallowing around.
I mean, those bases couldn't be more different.
Right.
San Diego, right next to the airport, in the middle of
Yep.
the city.
Yep.
Paris Island, you don't see any civilization. At the rifle range, we could see some bridge that we knew was going towards Savannah. That was the
Right.
closest thing to being in touch with the outside world that we had. Completely different bases. But when you went out in the field, you couldn't immediately tell if you were with somebody that went through San Diego or Paris Island. The
Okay.
standards were enforced in these radically different environments, and they all generated the same type of Marine.
Yeah. Our ID cards both say U.S. Marine.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and that's the thing. Like we can give each other crap
Yeah.
because we're in. No one else can.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all talk smack. Okay, about where and when and all that cool stuff, right? But you're exactly right. But it's that. And listen, they've had over 250 years now, 251 years now to perfect that system.
Yeah.
So you got to give it some merit. It's not something you just, oh yeah, whatever. It's, oh yeah, they got lucky. No, it's real.
Right.
And again, and it all doesn't apply in the civilian world. Because you have a concentrated group, 200,000 active Marines speaking the same language, operating the same mission, the whole thing. That's impressive,
Yeah.
right? But a factory, you got three shifts. They basically only see each other at a handoff, right? So how do you do that? That's where the problem is, Craig. It's shift to shift. Okay. Now we got duty, right? Your fire watch, whatever it is, and you hand it off. There's no confusion, right?
Right.
Or well, you're gonna walk around here, you're gonna do this, you're gonna check in this each time, you're gonna say like It's standardized. That's
For
what
those
most.
listening that don't know what Firewatch
Oh,
is, you're walking around a building that could never burn in its life. It's all concrete.
busy work. It's just to annoy you. So you get so frustrated you just want to go and kill somebody. So we're just the whole Marine Corps, if you don't understand in garrison, is to make you so annoyed, irritated, frustrated, and angry that when they pull the trigger, we're like, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah,
Okay. Because it's a great release.
yeah. Well, Richard, this is exciting. And I was, when we talked a couple weeks ago, I was really wanting to bring you on because this is a big jump from the last time we talked. And I love this. And something you told me earlier, you said systems without enforced standards will not save your business.
Right.
And that helps answer the question. I've seen people install these operating systems, and then I look at the business, I'm like, this place is a train wreck. And it was one of the big lines is, right seats on the bus and on the right bus. And I've seen people who are using one of these operating systems. I'm like, definitely the wrong seat on the bus, probably the wrong bus. Where is the thing? And you just answered it. There was no enforced standard.
Right. And a lot of these people who bring in these owners, I'll call them owners, right, of the business, usually in those, a lot of these are that, yeah, 0 to 30 million,
Yeah,
0 to 50 million revenue companies. They're doing that now. These systems are an upgrade from what they had because they had nothing before.
right,
They had fly by the seat of their pants. So this to them is this huge upgrade, but what they refuse to to approach is the floor element, the human element, how to do that. So real quick, think about my sharpen impact intelligence system. Okay. And then the commanders. Okay. The commanders are 15%. My intelligence system is 85% of this. Okay. But without the commanders, my 85% doesn't work. Without the intelligence system, my 15% doesn't work. It's very odd from a software standpoint because most will build with an assumption people know what they're doing,
right.
right? We have to install this command. You can't take my intelligence system and just go use it without command installed, right? So it's an unusual combination. It's symbiotic. Like they need each other to exist. So here's the last thing I'll give you. I created what's called the CYC. It's the command year coefficient. So remember I said they're uploading all this data every week and all this, every commander, all this stuff. They've got their own number. Once they graduate the 90-day, they get a challenge coin with an engraved number. It's their ID number for the rest of their career. We track it for the rest of the time they're in. Every new challenge coin they get every 3, 5 years, 10 years, it's got that number engraved on it. Okay. So that goes in and we track all that. Now, as a company, let's say you've got 5 sites, you got 50 commanders that are trained and been working, and 10 years goes by now. You have 500 years of installed command. Okay.
Wow.
Now, what are we talking about here? I'll give you a simple comparison. The FICO score for command leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. I own it. it's
Yeah.
it's mine, right? Like we record all that data, and that goes to the valuation of the company. And I'll make the prediction here on your show. Okay, in 5 to 7 years, that's a Wall Street number.
Wow. No, I
Okay,
look forward to it. I look forward to it. Well,
life is
Richard,
fun.
this is always a joy talking with you. So your company is Sharpened Impact, and your book is The Invisible Layer. I'm assuming it's on Amazon.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
All
is.
right. How can people get in touch with you?
Richard at sharpenedimpact.com. That's also the
Excellent.
website, sharpenedimpact.com. Great little good information. Okay. Not selling anything on my website. You, you
Well,
can check it out. You can see the book on there and all that stuff too.
well, thanks for coming back on Leaders and Legacies.
It's been awesome, Craig. Thanks for having me again.